Welcome, everyone, to Library Lovers Week 2025 with Every Library Live. I am Becky Spratford with RA for All, and I'll be your host for a fantastic conversation with some wonderful authors. But before we get started, I just want to let you know a little bit about Every Library. Every Library is the National Political Action Committee for Libraries. They provide pro bono support to libraries that are facing censorship and funding challenges. They fight every day to ensure that libraries are open and free from censorship. Before I bring out our guests tonight, I want to ask you to help me support Every Library during Library Lovers Week by making a donation today. When you do, we'll send you the library sticker of your choice so you can continue to share the love. Please head over to libraryloversweek.org to start a monthly donation of as little as $3 to get your sticker and support libraries. Okay, now let me bring in our guests who are here to talk about Pyramids to Plot Twists, crafting stories that captivate. First up, we have Sara Rosett, the author of Murder Among the Pyramids. I'll talk about it in a minute. And also, welcome, Sara, and also Jennifer Hilt, author of The Trope Thesaurus, Trope Your Way to a Stronger Story. Great. I want to start, though, and I want to let these great authors introduce themselves a little bit so we can all get to know each other a little better. So, Sara, why don't you talk about yourself as an author, your journey, and what people need to know about you?
Okay, well, I have always loved libraries and books and reading. And the only reason I think I'm an author is because of my growing up in libraries, basically. So that's always been my favorite thing is to go to the library, check out new books, see what's new, return the old ones, get some new ones. And I've always loved mysteries, and that's how I got into writing. I read a lot of mysteries. I loved cozy mysteries, and I wanted to write a novel, and I thought, I think that I could maybe do this. And so I attempted to write a cozy, and it took me a long time to figure out how to actually do that, and then to get an agent and sell the book to a publisher. But all that happened. And then over the course of time, I've written several series. That was a cozy series. I've written a couple more cozies, a travel mystery series. And most recently, I've started writing 1920s books that are mysteries, kind of golden age. I got into Agatha Christie and the golden age novels of, like the locked room mysteries, and just love that. And so I kind of have transitioned into historical mysteries and just having a wonderful time. Personally, I live in Houston. I'm married. I have 2 grown kids, so we're empty nesters, new phase of life. And yeah, I like to bargain shop, and I love to find bookstores that have vintage books. I've gotten into vintage books big time now. So that's that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sara. What about you, Jennifer? Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. My name is Jennifer Hilt, and I live in Seattle, Washington. I, like Sara, was really lucky that we could just grow up literally walking to our neighborhood library, and it was strongly encouraged to do that after school to get out of the house. And you could just go and walk up by yourself, library card, read whatever you wanted. So you weren't restricted to just like being in the kids section. So I remember reading books about like plants and things like that. And it was just really a place that I could let my mind wander and go to places that I wouldn't have been able to go because I grew up in Western New York in kind of a small community. So that love of reading just kind of propelled me through a lot of different things in life. And I was always, even as a kid, interested in story structure, but not in like a formal way. But I remember reading Little Women and thinking, like, so how does this, so there's 4 sisters, like, how come there's 4 sisters in Little Women and there's 4 sisters in The Little House on the Prairie books? Like, what's the deal with that? I remember thinking about those kind of things. So as it happens, that led me into studying linguistics in college, which I just loved, and to continue with reading and writing. And so I, like Sara, very long journey when you start out telling stories in your head and then you start to write them. It's like, oh, very different. So just lots of trial and error. And then I ended up writing bunches of romances in different subgenres and really learning. I also love mystery and thriller, like just the whole putting the pieces together. So learning how to write those. So I wrote a series of urban fantasy books that I really liked. And so it's just kind of been a whole thing with me where I just love to study how stories are put together and what makes them kind of click. And I'm read across all genres. So it's really pretty great to be able to go to the library and to see like whatever's in their new book section, or like here we have like Peak Picks, which is like you can get the new books that are out without having to go through a long waiting list.
We call those Lucky Day at my library.
Oh, I know.
Many libraries have those.
Yeah, there's awesome. And it really helps shorten up my Libby queue.
Yep. I love when I get a Libby and it's like, and Sarah, I'm going to tell you, my favorite Libby book to take on, especially on audio, are cozy mysteries. My favorite. So when I get the skip the line copy, I'm just so happy. That takes a lot of money, though. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I want to go back to Jennifer to talk about your book a little bit, though. So those of you who don't know, including the author, so my specialty is horror. And I've written 3 textbooks for libraries about how to understand horror and work with horror readers. And then I do have my own book coming out called Why I Love Horror in the fall with Saga Press. And I am obsessed with tropes, right? So your book, I started reading it the second I opened up the package, because the entire book is literally taking this topic of, hey, there are tropes. And I talk about this all the time when I train library workers, and readers are starting to learn about tropes, right? There are things I like, especially romance readers. They're really good at being like, I really like when there's only one bad or something like that. And so what I loved about this book is that you say, well, yes, tropes are there. This is not a bad thing, but this is how they can be used and are used better. So we're going to talk to a little bit about the readers, because I think on the surface, people think this is a book for writers. And I would argue, no, it's actually, I think, a book for readers. But why don't you talk about it?
Oh, I'm so happy you said that. Yes, I feel like I just want anybody who's interested in appreciating story more, and really not necessarily my thoughts on it, but helping you develop your thoughts on it, because there's so many great things out there that we can like. It's kind of like with, I'm not an artist, but I understand with paintings and things, the more you look at them, the more you see. And I feel like that's the same way with books and, visual media too. So, so that's my whole thing, was just wanting people to like, yes, it's great to just sit and back and like kind of be taken into a story, but then it's also really fun to think about, how did these layers work and what things can I recognize, and how does that like double back and become another thing? So I guess one thing I wanted to mention, somebody who's kind of like an inspiration for me, is Tana French. And so she wrote this Dublin Murder Squad series, which Sarah knows I've talked about, because I'm so like serious fangirl of hers. But she was one of the people that I read of, like, I had read her before, and then I was doing all this research, and I'm like, oh my God, Tana French uses tropes, and her books are just like, the characters in them, they're so intricately plotted, and they're so real. Like, I'm sure if I went to Dublin, I would meet these people. So that helped me realize, that tropes are just like a hook that we can use to communicate with our audiences, to like get them to understand, this is what some things are going to happen, but come along with me to see how that's going to unfold.
I love that you love Tana French. She just does stuff so well. And you're absolutely right. Tropes are there. And I think when readers are able to understand that there are tropes that they like, they're able to help themselves find new books to read. And I hope, I'm going to hold the book up again. I hope you check out this book to learn about that, which leads me to Sarah. I already gave away the lead here. I love cozy mysteries.
Yes.
I love cozy mysteries. I love horror, and I love cozy mysteries, because I love to escape. So either I'm escaping something worse or I'm escaping something better. And the 1920s, you were talking about, being so interested in it. I find it so interesting that it's coming back, because we are at that 100-year point away from it. And of course, this is an easy segue from Jennifer's talk about tropes in general to talk about the fact that you took the historical Egyptian trope from that time period. And we've seen books like this before, right? The people going out there in the 1920s and doing the digging and all this, and then added murder, right?
Yes. There's always a murder in my books.
There's always a murder. And it is have like that little bit of a locked room feel, right? Somebody with her did the murder. And these are so popular. So I know you talked about it a little bit, but first of all, what drew you to taking on this fairly, well-known trope? Because you definitely gave your own spin on it, and it's great. But I had to stop myself from reading this to go to work. So what did you do? How did you think about that, the frame, the tropes, and make it your own?
Okay, well, I grew up reading Elizabeth Peters and her Egyptian series. That was a huge influence on me. And even just Egypt in general. I remember in elementary school doing reports on Egypt and just being fascinated by it because it was so interesting and just different. And I'd always wanted to write a book set in Egypt. And so it was a big challenge. And so I kind of put it off and I worked on other things. But then I got the idea to write this 1920s book set in Egypt. And I was like, okay, I think I'll try it. And what I learned was that the British expat community was pretty insular. They were like pretty much in their own little bubble. They had their activities they did. They had their own newspaper that they put out every week in Cairo. And so I thought this is kind of the closed circle setting where you've got not necessarily a locked room setting, but you've got this small circle of suspects. And that's one of the tropes that I love about mysteries is, you've got all these people, somebody did it, and it's limited some way to a small group of people. And so I was like, I think that I can do this once I figured that out about the small kind of closed community. And then I was like, well, they have to go to the pyramids. But I didn't want to make my character an archaeologist because I was like, that's way too intimidating. But, they all went on tours of the pyramids at that time. And in the 1920s, you could climb the pyramid, you could go into the pyramids, you could hit golf balls off the top of the pyramids. I mean, they would go to the top and have a picnic. It was just so different than it is now. So I, tried to include all those things. And one of the things people wanted to do is they would go to the pyramids, they would watch the sunset, then they could camp out all night, and they wanted to see the pyramids by moonlight. And then they'd get up the next morning and go back to Cairo. And so, of course, I was like, that's the perfect setting for a murder right there.
Perfect. I would tell everybody it's perfect.
Yeah. So that's kind of how the story came together.
Okay. Big question. Did you have to go to the pyramids to do research?
I wanted to, but I had the idea and I really got serious about it in 2020.
Oh,
and
yeah. So no.
And I was doing all this research and then COVID happened, everything locked down. And I was like, okay, do I put this off again? Because I had started researching it like a year and a half before. Sure. And I thought, no, I'm just going to press on. And it was fine because a lot of the things and places that people visit, the pyramids are still there, obviously, but a lot of like the famous hotels and a lot of the sites that they would have gone to see don't exist anymore. So I relied really heavily on libraries and a ton of research.
And I'm going to say, and you wouldn't have been able to go hit a golf ball off the top anyway.
No, definitely not.
And that's a great, I love that, Jennifer's talking about tropes in her book and you're talking about how you have those ideas and how, yes, it's still a trope, but you have to figure out a way to make it fit your story as well. I think that was a great example. Now, I do want to move to libraries a little more because they're the reason we're here. So I'm going to ask John to drop that screen one more time about making a donation and picking your sticker while I introduce this. But we are here to talk about libraries. And I would love for you to share not just some memories like you already did a little bit about what they mean to you as institutions, but why you believe, because I think you're here because you believe this, because I believe this, libraries, especially public libraries and school libraries, are essential to upholding any free and democratic society. So, I would love it if we could talk a little bit lighter, but then definitely a little heavier. And just to give you a little background and everyone there, I am a 24-year library trustee elected official. So I understand this and have been in these trenches for a while. And I want to encourage everyone out there to make a donation that's on your screen and to learn about every library because they do great work. But also, while you're all thinking of your stories, I want to encourage everybody out there to make a commitment in the next couple months to show up at a school board meeting or a library board meeting and just go and offer to speak, to offer your support, that you're a library lover. Maybe mention every library if you want. That's how you got the idea, to spread the word. But just go and offer your support. I promise you, as a trustee, we don't hear the support. So even if you can't give money, going to do that is great. Both is better. So Sarah, what about you? You want to share some memories and just your thoughts in general about the importance of libraries?
Yeah. Well, I grew up, my mom would take me to the library every other week because we could check out our books for 2 weeks. And so every other week we would go turn on, switch out the books, find new books. And really it is an entry into all kinds of different worlds. And like Jennifer said, she could read, whatever. And I did too. I was like all over the library reading all kinds of interesting things. And I just feel like it gives you access to things beyond your immediate world. If you grow up in a small town, even if you're in a limited circumstance, even if you can't travel that much, you can through books. And it just gives you, I learned so much about history because, and I love history, but reading a fictional account of, say, World War II or, something that happened in the 1850s, it gives you just a new perspective on it and a very up close perspective that you may not get when you're reading a history book. So I feel like you can learn so much, and just having that access is huge. And it's free. I remember talking to the lady who cuts my hair, and she's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my son this summer. I'm signing up for all these programs. And I said, well, have you signed up for like the summer reading program? And she went, no, I haven't. And I was like, oh, you've got to do that because it's so much fun. And it gives them a love of libraries because it's a fun place to go. And then you build a reader, for life. So I just feel like there's the benefits of the educational benefits of libraries, the social benefits, people meet there, book clubs meet there. There's just so many things, and it gives you access to just these worlds of information, especially now with the internet, that, you can find resources for research and you can request books from all over the world. I mean, it's just limitless, it's just an amazing place.
I'm going to address a couple of things you said before I let Jennifer go. First of all, yes, you can use the internet, but I want to remind everybody that AI is creeping into our internet search results, and real people at the library can help you find the answers. And you're absolutely right. The library is the place to go. And another thing I want to encourage everybody who's watching, Sarah, I love that you said, and the library's free, but I want to remind everybody the library is actually not free. It is prepaid. So let's remind people, because people don't value what is free, and it is prepaid. You have paid for that service. And it is something that I like to say, if the library didn't exist today, there is no way we could start it. There is no way we could convince people to fund libraries. And there are places where funding is going away. And so that's where every library comes in as well. So I just want to remind everybody of that. And Jennifer, what about you? What do you want to say about the importance of libraries in your life and in, life of everyone?
Piggybacking on what Sarah said, I love that libraries are a physical place that we can go to because, we just talked about that. And it's really a place where you can go when you need a safe space to have some time to sit and, have your thoughts. And there's so much, you can access things that maybe you can't access for whatever else is going on in your personal life. If you're having, say like some kind of illness or something like that, there's like information there you can look up without alerting everybody and their brother and your family that you're doing that. Another thing I like about them, though, in addition to being that like kind of third space that we talked about, is that they have so much available to us online also. So like Becky and I talked about a little bit about before, Libby, which is like huge. If you read ebooks and audiobooks, you can like get those through your public library and right to your Kindle or your phone, or I read on my phone. And it's really amazing that you can do that, especially if you're somebody who reads a lot of books. You have a never-ending supply of you get like 20 books on your reserve, at least. I think
20 books.
Yeah, 20 books. And I'm like, oh, 19. And it sends me a little thing when I try to do like 21 or something. And I'm like, oh, I got to get through these so I can get to another one. So, but I mean, I think it's something that maybe people aren't aware of, that they really is a huge benefit for all of us. And again, just that idea of like, you're having access to a wide variety of materials that hasn't been like pre-screened for you, and people aren't telling you to read this thing or that thing. You get to choose. And I feel like that's a really important, that idea of choice, and that, something we really need to be grateful for and hang on to.
I know you have a funny story you shared with us backstage about a conversation you overheard at the library.
Well, like Sarah, I used to love, also, I was just going to say, I used to love when my kids were old enough to do the summer book thing, and then they aged out of it, and I was like so sad. But yesterday I was at the library, and it was like toddler story time, and this kid was insisting on taking this book, and the mom was trying to talk him out of it. Finally, she relents, and she walks up to the checkout, and she said, "Okay, so we're going to take out Mommy Has a New Friend. Daddy should really love this." And I just thought it was so great on so many levels. Like, A, I love that the library had that book. B, yes. I love that as a parent, you can't wait to experience the library with your kid. And then there's the reality of, oh, they really want to pick their own book.
But you're absolutely right. Like that book needs to be there for kids going through that with their, moms. But that was a great story.
Yeah, it was great.
I want to just now, since we are all readers, clearly all of us are readers, I want to spend some time to smash everybody's TBR, their to be read pile, and just start going back and forth. We have about 8 minutes or so where we can talk about books, old, new, upcoming authors that we want to just shout about to everybody who's here. So Sarah, we'll let you go first. We'll let you do one or two, and then we'll go back and forth. I might pop in too.
Okay, so just recommendations of some of my favorite reads recently.
Yeah, things that in any things that are coming out, things that are older that people might have missed. Please, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm all caught up on the Richard Osman series, and
I'm doing that now on audio. I'm doing that on audio right now.
I have a new one, and those, I think the Thursday Murder Club is just delightful. I think most people would enjoy that. And then a couple of my favorite series. I love the Ovidia Yu series. Her last name is spelled Y-U. Okay. 1930s and 1940s Singapore, written by a woman who talks about her experiences that she heard her grandparents and parents talking about during the war. It's fascinating and it's funny and heart-wrenching. So it's really good. I've also found these two sisters that wrote during the Golden Age, Gwyneth and Constance Little, Little. They were a writing team, and they wrote standalone novels. They're kind of like these wacky kind of 1930s kind of screwball comedy / mystery stories, and they're just so much fun. So those are available in reprints, and you can probably find them in libraries or used bookstores. So they're a little hard. They're a little harder to find, but they're so much fun.
I love that. We'll start with that. Now, how about you, Jennifer? Give us a couple, 2, 3 books that you think people should know about.
I really love a new book that I read, and I don't know, maybe you heard of it, Becky. Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was like just so happy to find this book, and it's a Old West story, but it has magic and it's this really great, strong female characters. Cowboys, all kinds of good stuff. So I'm really loving that. And it looks like there's going to be a book after it.
There is.
Yes. So I'm super excited about that. I will read anything by Cassandra Khaw.
Yes. They are the best.
Yes. I'm a huge fan. And I wanted, because I do like to talk with Sarah about books and stuff too. We talked the other day about Josephine Tey.
This is
yes,
upcoming book.
You have
I'm reviewing it.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. Yeah.
It's about a library too. So
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, she's so great. But I was just going to say another kind of golden age person. But if you like those, is Josephine Tey from the 1950s. She writes just like really good, solid mysteries. And Catriona Ward is another one I love. Her Sundial, again in this kind of domestic thriller horror space that I'm like loving. That there's a lot of cool stuff coming up. So those are just some of my favorites.
I love the range of books we're talking about here. Did you, and now that we've got a few minutes, I'm going to give what I do is a reader's advisor. I match books with readers. So did you, Jennifer, you love Tana French. Have you read God of the Woods from Liz Moore last year? That was one of the top books.
I haven't. I'm writing it down right now.
I'm calling it an American version of a Tana French novel.
Oh, God of the Woods?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Liz Moore. It was one of the top books of the year last year.
How did I miss it? Who knows?
And Sarah, like I said, I love cozy mysteries. Have you done the Shady Hollow mystery series?
No, but I have seen it and it looks so cute.
It's actually a writing team. When you mentioned a writing team, Black is a writing team. So for those of you who are listening, and they're available on Libby and Cloud Library and all those, they are cozy mysteries, but they are, Jennifer, you need to hear this. Each one plays with a different mystery trope. So there's like the academic, like dark academia trope. There's one that's like the total, like, Sherlock Holmes gets off the waterfall, does he die, does he not die off the waterfall one. They're just all very much cozy, but it's animals. It's a town of animals. And what I love about the books is, all the characters are animals, but they're not the same animals. And the book at the very beginning for every book says, look, if you can't get over the fact that there are animals and that a fox is friends with a bear and that a mouse, that don't read this series.
This sounds great.
All the way.
So I
That's
just couldn't
awesome.
resist not giving each of you some reading.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Are there other books, we have a minute or two more, or authors that you wish more people knew about or read that you would love to promote here right now?
I am a huge fan of, speaking of tropes, and Sarah's heard me go on about this, but I'm a huge fan of Daniel O'Malley's The Rook.
Yes.
And one reason I love it is because it has a different use of the amnesia trope. And so it's like, I don't know. I didn't like the TV version. I would highly recommend you read the book or audiobook.
I mean, always, right? Always read the book.
Yeah. And another one that I really love that also uses amnesia is Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy. So that's just like, since that's kind of a fun trope to think about and see it used in different ways, those are just kind of a few of my favorites for that.
And can you let people know, you didn't say what the trope was? Sorry, let people know.
I'm sorry, amnesia trope.
Yes.
Yes. So those are just some kind of interesting applications of it.
Awesome. What about you, Sarah? It doesn't have to be tropes, but authors. Although I love Jennifer's on brand.
Very on brand, yeah. Well, so recently, the book that I've read most recently, that's a modern book, but it really felt like a classic golden age mystery, it's Unnatural End, and the author's name.
Yes.
Are you familiar with this?
I reviewed it for Booklist magazine. I agree with you completely. I gave it a star review.
Yeah, it's so good. It's Christopher Hong, I believe, is Huang is the author's name, and he also wrote, I think, A Gentleman's Murder, and both of them very modern books published in modern times, but with that vintage feel. And they're just so good. I just enjoyed them so much.
Jennifer, I think you especially need to read those. Other people out there too,
Yes.
Because the Unnatural Places, because it does turn the whole trope on its head of somebody dies, who gets the money, which child.
It's got the whole thing, like the family comes together for the reading of the will thing, but it doesn't go the way you expect it to. And
it's always great.
It's interesting,
and
among the children and all that.
Even though it's set in the past, it's still multiracial family because they're all adopted. So it adds this whole other twist. Yeah.
It's like a very modern yet classic feel to it. It's interesting.
I love this. We are all going to be reading Friends forever. It seems like
I know.
a lot of the
I always
same
have
things.
a list when I'm with Sarah, writing down all the stuff.
Well, I'm sure everybody made a list today. So I just want to thank you so much for coming one more time. Murder Among the Pyramids. It's book 1. So we're going to get more in the 1920s Lady Traveler in Egypt series by Sara Rosett. And the Trope Thesaurus, Trope Your Way to a Stronger Story by Jennifer Hilt. Thank you both for being here. I do want to thank you for sharing about your writing and your connections to libraries and suggesting all the books to everyone. And I know that everybody out there, that you also share a connection and love of libraries. So please help help libraries in crisis around the country by becoming a donor today. When you do, we'll send you one of the awesome library stickers you see on the screen as a thank you. You can visit libraryloversweek.org and take your pick. And for myself and everyone in every library, I want to say good night to some of you. And I'll be back in a little while for our last conversation of the night. But thank you, Sarah and Jennifer, so much for being here and showing your support for libraries.
Thank you. It's been so much fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.